All right, we are back. Another episode of the Adversity Podcast, Real People, Real Stories, hosted by myself, Mambo, and Josh. What is up, man?
What's going on, everybody? How we doing? Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, all those fun things.
Yes, we are back, and you are no longer on crutches since the last episode.
Yeah, I got misdiagnosed. I learned that lesson the hard way. Went to the old urgent care, trying to heed the voice of my wife, correct? You know, just trying to be a responsible husband there. And they told me it was fractured, and we came in here that Friday and had the podcast. Well, since then, I've been to see an orthopedic surgeon who told me it was not fractured after 7 seconds of looking at this disc that I took him from the urgent care. I proceeded to get an MRI just to make sure, to find out there was nothing wrong with the knee. So it's bruised. I can't golf or run or do any leg with it, any weights with that leg for, I guess they say till the end of January, but I'm already kind of.
So take it easy for a little bit, and you're back to normal in a couple weeks.
Yeah, I think I'll probably halfway through January be having a golf club in my hand or something like that.
There it is, man.
Probably just won't run. I think at my age, running's overrated anyway.
So we got another great guest lined up for today. Who do we have today?
We've got my good friend Tom Dan. Tom owns the Adolfo Grill. He also owns a coffee shop and a pizza place, which he'll go into all that. I was fortunate when my wife and my son and I moved out here. Adolfo Grill was down the street from our house, and we kind of stopped in for a lunch, and we met one of his guys. His name's Alfredo, and just an awesome guy. And we kind of started frequenting the place. You know, we were new. We kind of like eat out, and we like people, as you've noticed, and his staff was just incredible, right? And the people that were there were regulars,
right?
Like Greg. You know, I met Greg through Adolfo. We're just these incredible human beings, and we really began to develop these amazing relationships with these people at this restaurant. And Tom was one of them. And so I'll let Tom kind of introduce himself, but that's kind of how we got to going. And he's just an amazing human being. He's been in the restaurant industry. So this podcast is kind of geared to those people who have either worked in the restaurant industry like I did, in college, or are owners of a restaurant. Maybe you're going through some trials and tribulations, especially with COVID. We all know what that did to the restaurant business.
Right.
Tom's got some really deep insights of how to make a restaurant a community feeling. I mean, there's a lot of options in Camarillo, but none of them will you walk in and feel that vibe like you do at Adolfo Grill. I mean, it's just a very personal, very, very, very human vibe.
Thank you.
It's
Thank you
it's
very
true.
much.
It's true. You've done a really good job with the place.
And the place has came up in a couple of our episodes of, I believe, the people you mentioned. The restaurant was brought up.
Yeah, yeah. We
meetup
eat
spots.
We eat there quite a bit. I'm pretty sure we're close to paying his rent every month.
There's a few of you.
That's a good thing, though, right? Welcome to the podcast, Tom.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Tom Dan.
So how did you get involved in the restaurant business?
Oh my gosh. Everybody usually has been in the restaurant business somehow, some way.
Right.
Growing up as a little kid or whatever. So originally I was about 12 years old, and there was a pool hall, and they served sandwiches and hot dogs and everything. But my job, I wore an apron, and my job, I was about 12, would go around to the tables and collect a dime. Every time they would finish a game, I'd have to go up there. And so that was my first initiation. And then I turned into twisting subs and doing the fun part of that.
Right.
And I got pretty proficient at pool and snooker over those years, all through high school. And then I was a maitre d' at a French restaurant out there for a little while. And then I went off. I started a family, got out of the restaurant business.
And where did this, what city?
This was in Fillmore and then to Ventura.
Oh, okay.
And so I've been living in Ventura for, 40 years now. Yeah, 40 years. And the deal, what got us really back into the restaurant business, though, was I had my own kind of business off supply, and beer business, and so sort of in that.
Mhm.
But my wife, we have 4 kids, and my wife, once we started to get them into school, said, "What am I going to do now?" I needed some income,
Mhm.
and she kind of waited tables at night, and so I bought a little deli, Valentino's, and never dreamed that it would just keep. We just opened another one. We opened another one. I think we were up at 4 Valentino's at one time, and definitely I stopped what I was doing and ran all that. And then Adolfo Grill came up 20 years later, and the landlords came to us and said, "Hey, I have this location. You want to take it on?" And okay. So that's how it happened. It was all kind of by a mistake, or by not even a chance. It wasn't that we were really taking a chance. It just took us that way. And we were both, my wife, Tori, was general manager of Brophy Brothers in Santa Barbara.
Okay.
And so she was very proficient and very good in the restaurant business. You know, she understood people.
So you guys knew the background, but never knew how to
get into it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it happened.
Wow. And did you expect this when you first opened up your spot to end up having
Not at
that
all.
many locations?
No, not at all. So we've since sold them,
Right.
because you can't keep that many eggs in the air at one time as one couple.
But Josh
I still
did
have 3.
Yeah, Josh did mention you have 3 other.
One Valentino's, the Copper Coffee Pot Cafe, and then Adolfo Grill. The other 2 Valentino's, one in Port Hueneme, I turned it into a taco place for a while, and then the COVID hit,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't keep it open. And the other one was Valentino's in Camarillo, right by Adolfo Grill.
Okay.
I had that until I couldn't keep up with everything, and I sold it to the manager, Jason. So
Wow.
now Jason has it, and
Is it still called Valentino's?
yeah, yeah.
Is that I think I've seen that place.
And then they opened one in Thousand Oaks. Jason and Steven opened one in Thousand Oaks. It was a Papa John's, and moved it over to Valentino's, and it's supposedly doing well. I mean, I go out there and check it out, and we stay in very, very tight contact
Right.
as to what is our steps and our pricing and our product. We don't try to change.
Mm-hmm.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it, kind of thing,
So how difficult has it been in you saying, trying to keep prices the same and all that?
Oh, the actual business?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's a big one. So the business, I've never seen in the last 2 years, I've never seen so many months that you look at the end. So I do all my own books.
Right.
Okay. At the end of the month, you think everything's going along fine, and then you see the profit margin. You go, what in the world happened? And you go back and you look and you say, well, this product went up, or
Yeah.
this protein went up, or this cheese, or whatever. And you're like, wait a minute, I just adjusted the prices. So I bet you in the last 2 years, I've adjusted prices 6 or 7 times.
Wow.
And that's unheard of in the restaurant business. You just don't do that. And that's just in the last 2 years from COVID.
But I've noticed a
Prior
lot
to that,
yeah.
no.
Yeah. Well, I've noticed in the past 2 years, a lot of restaurants have either switched up their menu, switched up the
Big
prices.
time. Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense in you mentioning, like, looking at the end and saying, like, whoa, what went wrong
Yeah.
here?
And so usually you do that, and you're doing that, every 2 or 3 months, every quarter, you kind of look at.
Mm-hmm.
I have never seen where you have to watch it once a month, and you're even watching it throughout the month.
Yeah.
And you have to adjust, and it just is, and you're getting hit from so many directions now. Labor and insurance and landlords and government and this fee, and now you have to report this report, and it's become
It's like an ongoing change that happens much more. Yeah.
Yeah. And it used to be you kind of could rest on your laurels and enjoy the ride a little bit. And now you're really on your toes weekly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
California, baby.
Yeah. And I think it is our area.
Yeah, it's
one of the biggest struggles.
It's tough doing business out here. Moving our store, moving from Texas and then getting the store out here. We were told how difficult it was. We were like, it can't be that bad. You just got to work, you just got to dig in. Man, they were right. It's tough. I mean, they got a lot of regulations out here, a lot of reports you've got to turn in. And if you don't, they'll come get you, man. I mean, and they'll find the fire out of you.
Yeah. And it's every week you get something and you go, wait. I hope I'm not late to do this. I've been reading this book. It's by Franklin Smoke. He's a smokehouse guy, and he's showing pictures and everything of his place in Texas. I looked at that, not one of those things would fly out here in California. And that's what you mean. Not one of the way he's putting on this food. There's no way
that it would happen here.
Oh, not a chance. Not a chance. They would close you so fast.
Oh, they close you down fast.
So there's just a lot of that stuff that and people are getting fantastic food there and flavors and stuff. And it's very difficult to duplicate what they're doing in Texas and Kansas and these other places with smoking. You can't, you'd have to have a lot.
I think one of the things about business too that I've realized is how much you've said it's changed recently, and this is after the pandemic, where even things that I used to do where I work, I stopped doing because I make more money doing it easier way.
Right.
I used to host a lot of events, but now I could make that same amount from a post on Instagram versus going somewhere for 4 hours and just doing it from wherever I'm at. So business has changed a lot.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And even looking for people that you want to work in your industry. I know people who make what we pay in a year, they make it in a month.
Yeah.
With being an influencer, social media, and it's hard to find creators in the radio world because they make a lot more money in just off of Instagram and Facebook and Twitter.
And that I remember when that first started becoming a thing, where you could make money being a influencer, or, basically just holding a product, and doing a bit on it, because these kids had so many followers. I was just like, man, there's no way that's sustainable. Kind of like what you experienced in the DJ world, right? There's no way that's sustainable. And looking now, it's like,
oh yeah, you got millionaires after.
I mean, these YouTubers.
Yeah.
Well, my kid wants to be a YouTuber, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many the good ones that are out there. They have these millions upon millions of followers,
Right.
And they're just all over the place.
Yeah.
And so, but where I believe the disconnect is in the fact that, when we started doing the stores, we were doing them because we got to know the neighborhood, and we used to do the community. We still do, but the donation thing, and we got to know the kids, and this parent would come in and say, I have a kid coming to this age. He may come to work for you. And hundreds and hundreds of these students worked for us through the years. And it was about that love between us all.
Mm-hmm.
Now everybody's out to make $1 million. These kids, everybody's chasing the dollar. And so what has been lost, you say everybody loves Adolfo Grill because it's kind of a place to come and you feel good about being in there, and you see somebody or you get to know somebody. That's what I loved about to do, right? And that's what really builds longevity. And oh yeah, you could open 50 Valentinos and go that whole direction.
Yeah.
But you completely lose what we really were about when we started, and And so I think that's the disconnect today is everybody's chasing, knowing they can make, I can make $1 million just by getting 1 million followers.
Yeah.
So that's my thought on, and so it's impossible in my industry. It's impossible to do that type of sell.
Yeah.
And it's impossible. But they're making it more and more difficult for me to make an income that just survives us.
Right.
You know, it's impossible. I believe it started about 2008.
When you seen the change?
When the change started, it was 2008. Before that, you know, we were really a part of the community. And then about 2008 and on, we began to chase our tail and react to what the government or whoever was doing to us.
Mm-hmm.
And prior to that, we didn't.
Business as usual.
15 years before, 20 years before, we didn't even think about it. You know, that wasn't a part of our game.
And I think that's one of the things that's, you know, for those listeners out there that are looking in, you know, to starting their own business and it being a restaurant, I think there is a piece of it that you have to look at and say, is this something that I'm going to duplicate, right?
Right.
Am I creating a business model where I'm going to duplicate this thing? Or am I creating a business model where it's going to be more community driven?
Passionate.
It's going to be like Cheers.
Yeah.
When you walk in, people know who you are.
Right.
You know who they are. You build these really dynamic relationships with a lot of people because you see them so much. You end up golfing with each other outside of the restaurant.
Right.
You end up having parties that you host, that you invite people from that you've met in that environment to. You know, all those people end up coming to your home. You end up going to their home. It's just a different dynamic than when I go to one of the restaurants in the collection, you know, and as great as those places are to eat, you know, that dynamic isn't going to exist there.
And you make a really unbelievable point that, so what has happened is they've made that collection, those big chain places, capable of being in business, but the one that you just described, where it's, you know, it's done out of passion and love for your fellow man and your patrons, right?
Yeah.
They have made it impossible to make a profit enough. The burden is so much more on the mom and pop, on Tori and I, that it's not worth it. It's really not worth it. You're scared and white knuckling it every day.
Yeah.
And that's what I mean by prior to that time in 2008, that didn't feel that way. You felt like you were a part of it. But gradually, since that time, and now, oh my gosh, it's just like I said, we were changing pricing monthly. We're looking at it. What's that? And so you can't stay up with it all, and the labor and the insurance. And so you feel like they're taking that away from us, you know, that ability to have. How many of those places do you know? They're getting down.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a couple of them, but you know, they're not that many. No. And in Texas, we had a couple places like that, and they were great little spots, right? And you'd find yourself there sometimes 3 nights a week,
right?
You know, but they were still even in Texas there was more of them, but you know, you still would have, you know, in Texas you had so many Applebee's and Chili's and Outbacks. I mean, they were like a church, man. There was one on every corner, you know, and so you could easily get overwhelmed. But the thing is the quality of the food was not that good. You know, I don't even eat at those establishments anymore. Not because they're bad, but just after eating at a place like Adolfo's or, you know, the places that we eat now, the quality of food is so good. You know, you go get a piece of chicken from an Outback, you might as well just get a piece of rubber chicken from the Walmart. Right. You know, I mean, it's this, and I started noticing that coincidentally about 7, 8, 9 years ago, you know, was I started because Outback I used to work there when I was in college, and it was great food. I mean, the quality of food was really good. The steaks were really good. You know, the chicken quality that they were bringing in from the different farmers, the different chicken farmers was really good quality chicken. And now it looks like it's been frozen in the back, and they just kind of slap it on a grill, and you know it comes in bulk. And
so, what do you think happened in 2008 that caused this? I'm going to ask you guys a question.
Isn't that when the recession got bad?
The recession,
but I think social media started blowing up then too.
Social media was the time. 2008, social media blew up. And also the change they started to take the ability from all businesses of pay scale. And they began to start saying, this is the pay scale and this is the pay scale. Instead of allowing the business owner to make those decisions. So an Applebee's or a Outback just did normal thing. They said, oh, well, if I have to pay this much, I have to make that difference up in profit somewhere. So they pooled chicken and they bought, chicken differently and cooked it differently or automated it to get rid of some of the part of that labor. So it all started in 2008 with that combination of social media really blew up in 2008. And also the labor force got around the country became controlled. The payment to people got controlled by the government, and it gradually has gotten to where now they 100% in control of what people get paid.
They're just going to go up too, right? In this year?
January 1.
Yeah,
we're going to go up another $1.50 an hour
in minimum wage.
Yeah.
And that's what always interested me about the restaurant business, because when I was in it, right, we got paid. Now this is back in the late 90s, early 2000s. We got paid like $2.50 an hour, and then your tips, right? And that was the extent of it.
What is it? That was a $4.25.
Yeah. You were at $4.25.
Yeah,
and you probably got about $15 an hour because you got tips.
Yeah, I mean, I got a ton of tips. That's why I did it for so long. I made a lot of money, especially as an older teenager going into my young 20s.
So it's going to $15.50, and their thought is you have to give them a living wage.
Do you have to pay them the $15.50 plus their tips?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, that's just a fortune.
In California, you get paid the minimum wage of $15.50 plus the tips.
Right. They make money.
I'm selling a dealership if anybody is interested.
So the other part of it that really hurts you is, so then you have these employees who are fantastic. You love them. They've been with you a long time. I'm not in charge of giving raises anymore. The state took that away. So this little kid who comes in learning to be a busser or do dishes, you have to pay them $15.50. Sorry, manager, I can't give you any more money because they just took $1.50 from me per person that doesn't belong getting. They're just learning, and what, they think you're not going to pay to keep somebody working?
Yeah.
It's just, and so they took it all away. And those two things caused the business to, the mom and pop.
Yeah.
And that's why McDonald's and all of these giant corporations are becoming so automated, because they just keep pushing employees off and saying, no, we got to make it up somewhere.
Yeah.
But the mom and pop can't do that.
Yeah, I seen a report on McDonald's. It was like one person in there running the whole building. Everything else was.
Yeah, they can do it.
Yeah,
they can get away with it.
Yeah.
And that's where the quality went. That's where I was going to answer that question.
A lot of people don't realize, I think, either with the restaurant, is inventory. You got to basically calculate how many people you're going to feed every day, because if you order too much food, it can go bad. If you don't order enough food, you can't. You got to tell people, "Oh, sorry, that's unavailable." Kind of talk to us a little bit about how you've learned how to navigate through, inventorying a restaurant? Because I can say that, I've never been to Adolfo and I wanted to order something and then say, oh, no, never mind. We don't have that. I think that's something else you've dialed in pretty well is inventorying your food.
So what happens in that is you kind of cross products. So when you get, say, you do tri-tip, so you offer it this way, and then you have too much tri-tip, so it goes into tacos, and then you kind of salmon. You order all the salmon, fresh salmon, and then you say, okay, we got 2 slabs of salmon left. You make it into salmon cakes, and you have it as an appetizer, and so you get rid of it 2 ways instead of just one. So you kind of cross everything. At Valentino's, in the pizza business, we'll do all these pizzas, okay? And I would say 70% of the pizzas, the product's also in our subs or in our salads. And we design the
menu to
use all of it. And that's kind of how you do it. Yes, there is some spoilage and you just got to eat it, but
you just calculate it as like a waste factor.
Right.
Kind of like construction, I would assume, if you order too much material or the material that you cut up, right, that you lose, you just calculate it as waste.
Right. And so like there's, everybody loves filet mignon, right? But you order a certain amount and it doesn't sell, but it's also in the stroganoff, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so you move it that way as well. So you find different ways to add it to different products, and you move it
different specials. So now when you walk into a restaurant and you see the special written on the chalkboard,
they have a lot of it.
You mean that? Yeah, that means they got a lot of it and they're trying to get rid of it.
Or it's the other way around, right? It's the other way around.
They don't have enough. They don't have that much of it, and they want to dump it.
No, we just got it in, right? Like right now, I have lobster, right? Well, you can't say lobster. So it's either the thing we just got, okay, bone-in ribeye or what's a T-bone, right?
Okay.
So you'll see that on the special. So a lot of times the special is something we just got fresh in.
Oh, okay.
And you're trying to not let it go bad.
Trying to get ahead of the curve kind of deal.
And then you move it out. That's usually what we do. It's not to dump something. It's the other way around. Now, next week, if you see lobster tacos,
that means we're getting rid of it.
But that's kind of how it works.
Another cool fact about Tom is Tom comes from a very large family. You have 11 siblings?
And there's 10 of us.
10 of you.
I'm in the middle. Yeah.
And how many people show up for Christmas when they all show up?
Oh yeah, hundreds.
Hundreds.
Yeah, not hundreds, but hundreds. And we
big old
get
family
together. Yeah, and we have a good time, and it's damn family Christmas, and we have Santa come, and it's a special time for all of us to get together. And we're all pretty much in the area still. Just this year with the pandemic and stuff, some of us have moved Texas and North Carolina and Tennessee and Louisiana. But for the most part, all of us are right here. So when we pull together the family,
there's still hundreds.
Oh, yeah. And Mom is left, Grandma Carol. She's 88, and she pretty much shows up and is a part of it big time.
Wow.
And then the 10, siblings. So we're down to 8. 2 of them have passed. So, but all the kids are together, and a lot of them now they're in the next generation, right?
Yeah.
So that's why there's so many.
So are you the only one in the family in the restaurant business?
Yes.
Or, yeah.
Yeah. Being a middle child, I always had to appease the older ones,
right,
and kind of take care of the younger ones and appease them. So I learned to kind of negotiate my way.
Being in the middle, right?
Being in the middle.
Balance.
Yeah. And I think that I think about that and I say, that's probably why I'm in the restaurant business, because I recognize the way their faces are. I say, okay, I know what this guy needs.
He knows how to make it happen.
Yeah. You see their face.
It's fun. You go in and you see Tom. He'll be in there a lot of times in the restaurant, and he's like the perfect liaison.
I want to hear this.
He comes.
I don't know what is.
He comes. He'll see him and he stops and he'll talk to these people, and usually has like his glass of wine, or if he's got his bourbon, whichever kick he's on that day, and he'll come through. But he's always got this like big old Santa Claus smile on his face, right? So I remember when the first time we started getting to know Tom, right? He'd come through and he'd have that big old smile, and he's just the most personable guy. And here I am, like, I wanted him to come talk to me, like, come over here, man. Like, that means I'm cool. That means I'm part of the fam, Come spend some time at my table.
Yeah.
And it was fun as we got to know each other, and then eventually we've golfed together a few times, and now we're buddies. It's fun to see him still kind of in that environment now that I'm kind of on the other side of it, where I'm super familiar with him and I'm super familiar with his family, and we've all got these great relationships, and to see him still it's just that consistency, right? And I think that's important for our listeners to understand is, even if you do decide to go the cookie cutter route, I don't mean that condescending, but like, where you're wanting to do 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's what you're going to do. You're going to create a business model you can duplicate, and you're just going to put it out into the world, and you're probably going to have to get partners, because like Tom, if you try to just do it by yourself, you're going to max out unless you develop some sort of tree of network of people underneath you and delegate responsibilities for them
to
do things. You're just going to burn out.
Yeah.
You can't, it's physically impossible. So one of the things that I really want our listeners to understand is consistency is probably the most important piece to any business. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to do the cookie cutter thing, the cookie cutter businesses like the Chipotle's, even when Chipotle went through what they went through a few years ago with the bad beef, they were able to bounce back because they have such a solid business model. Right. They knew exactly what their identity was. They knew exactly what they provided, and that's exactly how they market it. And when something came up that could have sank their ship, they just continued to, they apologized for it. They gave out some coupons and some vouchers, said we were wrong, and just kept going.
Right.
Because and they're still consistently good if you like fast food. Mm-hmm. Or if you're going to go the route like Tom has done, which you can do 1, 2, 3 solid restaurants, community vibes. You couldn't do 2 or 3 of them. Like, you couldn't do 2 or 3 of them. You couldn't do 2 or 3 Adolfos per se in Camarillo, but you could do one in Camarillo. You've got one in, say, Ventura, and one in Calabasas. I'm just using examples, right? But that's basically going to be it. But the key is to keep consistency in all 3 of those locations.
Right.
To keep that where people walk in, because it is your regulars that really turn an engine on a restaurant. Because they're the ones that are constantly coming in. They're usually your biggest tippers. They usually spend the most money at the restaurant. They usually have the best relationships with your staff, and they're your best cheerleaders out in the community.
Right. And so you were saying like 3 of them. So part of the challenge that you would have trying to do 3 of these is I couldn't drive 3 of these stores.
Right.
I would be exhausted, right? Socially, you can't go in. So you would kind of have to have that figurehead at each store. At
each spot.
Yeah, because you can't, by Monday and Tuesday, I don't want to hear or see, or Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, I don't. My brain is fried, and and then there's alcohol involved too.
Yeah.
You have a couple glasses of wine because you want to be social and be a part of it.
Right.
And so you got to monitor that. That's huge.
Yeah.
You can't be you can't be the hostess, partier, crazy guy too much because you will lose. You lose yourself in that very quickly.
And people will notice that too, right? And that's a valid statement, as far as even with having those 3 kind of personalized locations, you would have to have
other
people still that did exactly and were able to be as responsible as you are with it, right? Like I've been in that. I've been going there for 3 years. I've never seen Tom drunk in my entire life, right? I mean, maybe when we were golfing a couple times, but, not
probably right.
not in the restaurant, not I've never seen him belligerent. I've never, you've never seen him stumble. He's always very composed, always in a great spirit, always communicating with people. And I think that's what separates his restaurant, from others in the community that we've frequented.
So, and also an interesting point about Adolfo Grill is, so it's built around. When I first opened it, I was trying to do a restaurant because it'd been there a long time as a different restaurant, but as a restaurant for the city of Camarillo. And I thought, well, what a great name to name a restaurant after the founder of Camarillo, right. Adolfo. So that's how the name came about. But also, I belong to 2 writing groups, Rancheros Adolfos. It's a kind of a county horseback riding group.
Okay.
And, there's, 150 guys that come and go out of that. And then Rancheros Victories, which is in Santa Barbara County. And so these 2, and that's a big one, it's 900, 1,000 members.
Wow.
So what kind of has happened with Adolfo Grill is I tapped into the city of Camarillo pretty well, but we're right off the corridor of the 101. So these fellas on the Rancheros Victories are throughout the country. And Rancheros Adolfos are all kind of the county. So Adolfo Grill has kind of turned into a county restaurant.
Right.
It's kind of a destination, and you can never let go of the families that are right here in Camarillo that support you and keep you running, and they're there consistently. But at the same time, these other families come, or guys and wives come and go up and down the corridor, and they'll come from San Diego. They'll come from
and make it a stop,
and they stop on their way. And so it's kind of gotten a life of its own that I honestly did not see coming.
Yeah, I've noticed, a lot of people too that move outside the area. They always find their like
spot.
I'm back home.
Yeah,
type of restaurant, and I feel like that's the kind of. Where exactly is it that you're located at?
It's right off of Las Posas,
67 East Daly, Camarillo, California.
What's next to it?
So if you are coming south and you turn right, it's the factory outlets. Well, you turn left, we're right on the other side of the freeway, so it's Las Posas and Daly.
Okay.
Yeah. And
right by that Chase Bank off of the Las Posas exit, right in that same plaza.
Okay.
And so it's really easy to get off the freeway. A lot of people get lunch and off they go, both directions, dinner as well. And then some of the guys fly in on their jets.
Yeah.
At the airport, and they come across the street. They'll have dinner, lunch. They're in town, and then off they go. And so I see those people as well.
It's easy on and off.
Yeah, easy in and out.
It's so easy.
So that's.
Now that you mention it, I believe I've been there numerous times now.
Yeah,
over the years.
It's right in the Ralph's parking lot.
Yeah,
so it's there's so much there that even we use. I've stopped in. I've gone to the grocery store, and a couple of guys had texted earlier that they're going to be up there, and I'll swing by on the way to the grocery store. Hey guys, it's so convenient. It's crazy,
and it's a good parking lot. So,
yeah, I believe that's where we've met when we're going to go to a game in LA.
Right. A lot of people
meet up there. Who's driving, and then we leave from there.
Right. And on the other side of the freeway is that parking for commuters.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's
Over there by the
another-
Cracker Barrel, kind
Yeah.
of, or that car wash more than the Cracker Barrel.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So since the pandemic, you mentioned that there was a lot of change. Do you see that change continuing to happen?
I think it's all going to come back. I just can't see how we can maintain this level of chaos.
Yeah.
I just don't. I think it's it's a transitional period of time because it was such a mind blower that they stopped everything and everything, and people got paid to be stopped, and then this new dynamic started, and so people got their priorities changed,
Yeah.
and so I think it's just a matter of a couple more years, and I think it'll
Slowly come back.
slowly come back. What won't come back is the level of governing that we get now. That once that box is open and you begin to get so governed that I just don't see that going back the other direction. And that's the part that is more disturbing, because how do you deal with this much governing? You're afraid that you do something wrong every week.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, all I'm trying to do is be open,
Yeah, I know a lot of people who did start businesses. A lot of them were like cash based.
Mm-hmm.
They were using the apps, and then they started regulating that they were gonna if it was like over $600, but then they removed it like this past week. I think that they were saying that the IRS wasn't ready for that.
Right.
No, really.
Yeah.
I didn't
So,
see that.
I heard
That's
that,
crazy.
too.
Yeah, so to me, it's just crazy how much, I mean, come on, $600, you're really gonna worry about that?
You're going to monitor that. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And the other one is things like someone gives you a cash tip or they give you a credit card tip. Well, before we kind of didn't pay attention to it, and but now you got to watch every cent of that because you're held as we're held responsible.
The restaurant?
The restaurant is really.
Yeah, we're held responsible for it tax wise.
Wow.
And then Cal Savers is another one. They put that on our shoulders instead of just doing their own Social Security for the state of California. They said, no, whoever has so many employees, it's you're in
Your
charge.
responsibility.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your responsibility
Wow.
to put that on your payrolls and deductions, and like what? And then it's a charge. It's so. When did we get
Yeah.
strapped with that burden? That's their burden, not
Yeah.
ours. Anyway, and especially at our level of employee.
Yeah. How many employees do you have?
Like 40.
Is that between all
40,
three restaurants?
Yeah, 40, right at 40. And here's the funny thing. Before pandemic, 60.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. We can't seem to be open on Sundays because we can't get the employees, and you feel obligated to the employees that stuck with you and worked hard, and so you don't want to take shifts from them. So when you add a whole nother day, you got to take shifts from people that have been really loyal to you. So
Yeah.
you don't do that. The pay structure's all screwed up. So you say, well, is that going to be even worth it to be open?
So you used to be open 7 days a week.
Yeah. And it's and in at the Valentinos we've even cut hours. Okay, we're going to only be open for this many. So those kinds of things have caused just less sales,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah, that's one of the things I've struggled with on our end, because in Texas we weren't allowed, not in the restaurant side, but on the retail side as a dealer, an automobile dealer, boat dealers, the whole thing was the same thing. We could only, blue law, we could only be open 6 days a week, right? So there were a handful of dealers that would be open on Sunday, but they were closed on Saturday. So, and the reason their thought process was because all the other dealers were open on Saturday. There's only a few that would be open on Sunday. So they had that they would be open on Sunday. Coming out here, being open 7 days a week, it's like, I mean, yeah, we do business on Sunday, but having that one day
It's awesome.
is pretty awesome, because then all your staff has one day. You're only scheduling another day off for everyone, right? Everyone you can, and it's so much easier to do shifts and schedule your employees' hours on a 6-day work week than it is a 7-day work week. And especially in California with the overtime laws that they have.
Right.
It's like, we want you guys to be open 7 days a week, but you got to do it within this construct.
Right.
And it's literally impossible.
Right.
You know,
Well, you'll get in trouble.
and you'll get in trouble, and you got to pay all this extra money because of the overtime. And if they go in overtime, there's different breaks that they qualify for then that you got to make sure that they get. They've got paid breaks. They've got non-paid breaks. I mean, I've just never seen anything like this. And I lived in Atlanta, which didn't have blue law either. It was 7 days a week. But Georgia was a lot like Texas. I mean, it was, you work, and if you don't work, we'll fire you. Out in California, you don't have to work. We got to write you up 17 times and tell your mom, then tell your dad, and then tell the principal, and then call a couple of attorneys, and then we can fire you. It's crazy.
Right. And they still go after
And then they still sue you. Come on. So I've experienced all of it in the last 3 years.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
From Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah. It's been a culture shock for us. You always tell people you pay for the weather. You pay, and a lot of people don't realize too, from Texas, like especially Ventura County, people in Ventura County are so similar to people in Texas. The mindset, the thought processes, the values, the morals. I mean, the way we look at life. You don't realize that living in Texas, how close to the same mentality that people that live in Ventura County are to people that live in Texas. It's quite wild, but you don't get this weather.
Well, and also in Texas, you don't get the governing that you do here in
No
county. And so, but it's amazing. The people are very similar.
They are super similar.
Yeah.
They're very similar. I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed the people. I've enjoyed, the mountains, the water. I haven't had a chance to go up to Mammoth or experience any of that yet, just because we've been so slammed. But I've enjoyed it. I like California. But as far as the politics and running a business in this state, honestly, it's a very, very, very tough thing to do.
Yes, and you feel a little afraid that you're going to mess up, and then you're going to suffer the.
Yeah, then they're going to come fine you $20 grand,
and you're like, wait a minute,
got to fire that guy so I can pay that fine.
Man, I feel like there's so much more to your story, but I do appreciate you stopping by and sharing the little that you did on how you started. And we'll definitely have you back for another episode, because I feel like, there's more to share here.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you for coming, man. It's
Happy
always
New
a
Year.
pleasure.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for checking out the podcast. And, of course, we'll be back next year with some more episodes. And do we want to give out our email for guest ideas?
Yeah.
Yeah. So DJ Mambo at Gmail, if you have any guest ideas for us, someone you would like to hear on our podcast. We sit with real people. They share their stories of what they've been through to start their business. Maybe they already have their business, what they're going through. There's some people who had the same business model in the East Coast, brought it to the West Coast, and find success.
Right, exactly.
So it's always great to share stories like this with you guys. And thanks for checking out the podcast. And we'll catch you next week, all right?
Peace.